So I'm gonna put everyone, if everyone can go video off until we announce you, that'd be awesome. Except for Julie and I.
Let me turn my ringer off here.
Natasha too. Hello, peoples that are joining, because I'm sure you can hear us and see us. This is awesome.
9 people.
Yeah. So I know we should get to 100, so we're almost there. So once we hit 100, Jew, we'll get it flying going. And I know that we're
Awesome.
also live. I'll put the live. I'll just drop it in the chat if you guys want to share the live with your peoples.
Join us on YouTube. Should play some music in the back. Hey,
yes.
Hey,
welcome to Pull Up a Chair. Let's have a conversation about what it means to stand in the gap. We're at 80, almost at 100, Jill.
Amazing. Well, we're gonna get it popping.
Yeah, I guess we get it popping. Yeah.
Say the chat is popping, right?
Yeah.
All right. So say where you're representing, what city, what town, what country, what hamburger, just what pizza slice. Hey, living vicariously through you guys right about now.
What's your favorite slice? Because Drew has me on belly bus mode. She ain't giving me a pizza from time. Carrot stick.
Toronto, gluten-free. So Cindy says Toronto, gluten-free. Maureen standing there in London, Windsor. Come on now.
Whippy, repping Canada, Scarborough.
That's right.
Yonkers, New York. Yeah.
New York?
New York up in the house. Yes.
Edmonton,
Alberta.
Do you want to put the YouTube link in there so they can, if they need to go dip and go share it with the people?
I'll do it again. Here's a YouTube link if you want to share it. We're live on YouTube. We're streaming live, so everyone can come. We're almost at capacity on Zoom. Argentina. Wow. Transplanted to Westchester. Wow. That's awesome. Hamilton. Vaughan, my next door neighbor. Yes. Brampton. Love from Milton. Woot. Yes.
You know, we
awesome.
All the way
I'll just keep sharing the link for those of you that
steak sandwich. Someone said steak sandwich. So you guys, I'm just showing you. Listen, if you go to my Instagram stories, I'm about to post the link for you guys to get in on his chat. Okay, go look for it right about now.
Okay, so June and I are going to kick things off because I already see, I believe people are joining the live as well, the live stream. So we want to get things going. We have an amazing panel of women. We're going to be live tonight. This is real conversation. And it really was born from June and I talking about the fact that we actually just need to get in conversation, all of us. We need to listen, we need to learn, and we need to understand one another. And we need to really learn what it means to stand in the gap. Mm-hmm. And we fundamentally believe that that's where, we'll start to create foundational change in our culture. And so we're here today. We believe that there's more that unites us than divides us. And I think we see that's very evident tonight. We need to also help build the right narrative, right? To drive lasting and impactful actions that will lead to meaningful outcomes. There's a lot of people that still don't know what to say, saying the wrong things, wanting to know what to say. And so tonight is a night where we can actually start to share some of the narrative. We want to focus on ideals as we recognize that there are equally disturbed people that are not Black and want to see real transformation. Mm-hmm. And this is not a political conversation, okay? This is a living conversation, how we are really living and contributing to a better world. And so, Jill, you want to drop some wisdom?
Do want to drop some wisdom? Well, glad that for however many weeks later, we are still having the conversation. I think it was very, very important that for me, I made a commitment 52 weeks. I mean, I've been living Black my whole life, but recognizing that whether it's, RIP Kobe Bryant or Hurricane Katrina or, what was all these different things that happened all around the world and what's happening in our country, being in the media, sometimes things just become another news item. And then another topic comes up and then you move on to the next. And this is something that we can't afford to just move on to the next. And so better together, conversation is key. listen, learn, and take action. And it's about love. You know, we give grace, we get grace. And I think it's time that we get comfortable saying the words black skin, white skin. Like just having it come off of our lips, off of our tongue, and not think that we're saying some cuss word. We're talking about race and issues of race. So I'm excited.
And I think in the conversation about race too, we had this one specifically Black women and white women, because white cannot be excluded from a conversation on race.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I'm excited to get it popping, you know.
Okay, so we're going to start to bring in our amazing panel of speakers. First up, there is one, just for everyone, there is one speaker that will be joining us at 8 o'clock. So we'll Colleen Ward. She's a vice president of technology at TD Bank. She'll be joining us at 8. So first up is Jody Kovich. She is the founder and CEO of Move the Dial. Yes, Jody.
Hello, thanks for having me. So happy to be with you tonight.
And do you want to share a little bit about your why?
About my why I'm here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I'm honored, honestly, and humbled to be asked to be here. And my why is, this is a moment in time where, as you say in your words, we all need to come together to have real talk about race, about being white, about my privilege, about being part of a community that is responsible for standing together to make a real change. And this is a very serious moment in time where all of us, including those of us who have a great deal of privilege to lend, and, excuse my language, a shit ton to learn, need to show up, listen deep, learn, and take this moment and opportunity very, very seriously. And I see that as my lifelong journey responsibility. And I feel so grateful to have friends in you that invited me to participate. And I want to listen and contribute as much as I can. So thank you.
Thanks, Jody. Next, we have McKinney Smith. She's the founder of A Walk in My Stilettos. Come on in, McKinney.
Hello.
Hey, girl.
And what's your why, girl?
Oh, wow. My why? I mean, my why is all about us owning our stories and controlling our own narrative. So white, Black, whatever we are, you know, our ability to speak our truths and to come together. I mean, I've got mixed race children, so the views in my household come from many different perspectives. And I think that it's great. And I'm honored to be here to pull up a chair and have this conversation with you ladies.
Awesome. Thanks, McKinney. Next up, we have Maureen Hagen. She is the Chief Operating Officer at CanFit Pro.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Hey, Momo.
Hello, thank you so much. I'm truly honored to be in all of your presence and to be part of this conversation. My why is to move people forward and to positively influence change. And this is a conversation that I'm glad, although disappointed and sad, that it's come to what is going on in the world for us to be here having this conversation, but I'm stepping in fully because I know that for change to happen, we have to change. And I know I need to change. And I want to be part of a movement. That's my purpose. And I know that we can be better together. And I appreciate the conversation and the opportunity. And I thank you for challenging me to say what I will always say is yes. And then I will figure it out. And I know that when I surround myself with smarter people than myself, then I will learn, grow, and be able to influence. I am a white woman with privilege and a platform, and I am determined to use it to create the change that's necessary, not only in my industry in fitness and health, but for the whole world.
Thank you. Mo. Thanks, Mo. Next, we have Natasha Weissman. She is president of NKPR. Come on in, Natasha.
The bomb battle. Hey, Natasha.
Hey, I am so honored to be here. Julie, you and I remember when we did that TED Talk, I guess it would be a year ago now, and I did mine on the importance of showing up. And I feel it's really important now more than ever to show up for one another. I consider it a privilege to be able to do so, but I also think this is a really important time and a pivotal time to ensure that we're all responsible for actually taking action. And so with this open conversation. I just want to be here to learn, unlearn, which I think is really important.
That's very important.
Listen and be able to share. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
I appreciate that word, unlearn. I
Unlearn.
think it's a lot for a lot of us to take that. And last but certainly not least is Victoria Peltier. She's Vice President and Senior Partner at IBM. Come on in, Victoria.
Great. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I, too, like Jody, realize that I have significant privilege as a white woman who was fortunate enough to be born in Canada. First and foremost, I've had a platform for a long time as a corporate executive for now, scary 20 years, and fortunate enough to stand on stages. The notion of diversity and inclusion has been a passion of mine that I've talked about for many, many years. But and I'm going to steal from Inc. You shared something with me, a clip around co-conspiratorship. And I've used it very much as I've been talking, with, my own colleagues at IBM. And I love it because, it's much more about than being an ally, right? It's about putting ourselves and having uncomfortable conversations, about being accountable, not only at work. I said the other day, for me, it's also about raising good humans as a mom to do children, who are going to do more in the world. So I wanted to be here as my why, to do something with the privilege that I have to, share that I'm here and I'm listening. And it's not just for, several of my besties who happen to be Black. This is for all of us. Again, stronger together.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to just get us going. Again, there's no rules to today. It's really this, Ju said it's so good the other day. As much as we, you could say this is a safe space, it's actually a brave space more than a safe space. And, I believe we're all here because we are willing to just really just kind of go over the edge in terms of where the conversations need to go. And there's a lot of people that are listening in right now. We're almost at 200 across both platforms. So the first question we have, and, Ju and I want to make sure that we answer this, even though there's an intersectionality between our personal and professional lives, with the news of George Floyd and it now hitting, it in the video going out and it now being in the homes and kids asking parents questions and it now being a topic in conversation in the office place, we want to know both in your personal space, like that space where you let your hair down, and the professional space where there's policies and there's systems. What has unfolded for you? And if you can really speak personally and then professionally. And so we'll start with the order that you came in. So Jody, if you want to start first.
Are you sure you want me to go first? Okay. Right now, it's interesting. It's an interesting question. And I feel that my professional self and my personal self are one self in this moment, for a variety of different reasons. But, I think for me in the last few weeks, as I've been having many one-on-one conversations and a number of group conversations, I have experienced a much more emotional connection to my why. And I think as a highly privileged, white, cisgender, heterosexual, highly educated woman doing D&I work as a daytime job for the last 3 years, I was previously quite intellectual about my listening and journey to learn to stand in solidarity, whereas now sort of at another stage in my own learning journey, listening very deeply to friends and members of the former Move the Dial community and people in my network, I just feel a much more emotional wake up and calling to listen more deeply, and actually starting for the first time to emotionalize what I'll never understand. For example, hearing a man I deeply respect describe his lived experience of having his identity as a Black man be present every single moment in every single meeting. that is not something that prior to George Floyd's death and the world rising in a Black Lives Matter movement in the way that the community has in the past, we all have in the past few weeks, I could ever emotionally connect to in the way that hearing him speak about it did. And so for me, it really has called me to much greater action, if that makes sense, to really go much deeper and understand sort of the word that you used earlier, I believe it was Natasha, around unlearning, and understand that it doesn't matter what good intentions I personally, as a person with a platform and great privilege, have ever had. I'm really just at the beginning of my own personal journey to stand in solidarity. And it's just a much greater emotional desire to connect and to listen, not just to what the Black community as a community faces, but actually individual, every single person that I speak to or have the privilege to listen to and learn from about your own personal lived experience. And I think that it's, I don't know, for me, the one-on-one conversations and these conversations every time are that gift to learn and to get called in when I make a mistake, because I do, and I will make many. So anyway, enough for me. I'd love to share the platform, but I really appreciate you asking. And it's just been a much more personal awakening that will inform what my next professional step is.
That's awesome. Thanks. McKinney?
Wow. So I guess since the George Floyd stuff came up, I couldn't watch the video. I'm an empath. Something like that would destroy me. But having all of the racial issues highlighted, and I know Julie talks about this all the time, like we've been Black our whole life. And there's a lot of experiences that we have that I guess sometimes we kind of, you know, push to the back or tuck down when certain things happen. And with everything that's happening now, it's triggered so many things that we've tried to, I guess, not focus on, from, you know, racial issues, from, you know, your name or being the only one in the room, or like any of those things. And I find, especially in my house with mixed race children, it's triggered a lot. And I feel like there's sometimes sensitivities with the kids. You know, if I ask them certain questions about how they're feeling, they don't want to say anything negative about their white side. They don't want to say anything too much about their Black side. And they cut, you know, they'll share information with me. They'll share the stuff that they're seeing online, but you can tell they're kind of walking on eggshells themselves. And because I'm that person where men and women will come to me with their stories of things that they don't share publicly, I've had so many men in my network that are looking for a safe space to be vulnerable. And I've been an ear to all of these men, 6'4" burly Black men crying on the other end of the phone about how they're feeling. And they don't know how to express those emotions, or they don't know what to do with that. It's just been a lot. I find women in my business networks and in my personal networks where they're now feeling offended that their white friends haven't said anything. They're offended by the silence. They're offended that, you know, people that they grew up with since they were little, that they've always defended from other cultures and other races, have said nothing. I'm finding like the sensitivity right now, it's on high. And like I said, it's just triggering not only in my household, but in all the environments that I'm in.
Oh, thanks, McKinney. Maureen? No?
Yes. Wow. I was just reflecting on all of that, and it's, I feel the emotion, and that's what I've been feeling personally and professionally for the last month. You know, this is really important, and it's something that I feel that through my lack of understanding, that I've been ignorant to what's been going on, because I've prided myself to bring inclusion and the conversation forward, but I recognize it just hasn't happened. And so I'm taking responsibility for that. And since all of this has happened, you know, the majority of my conversations have been around how can I help? And how can I help by learning and helping others learn? So the company I work with on a full-time basis is both Good Life Fitness and CanFit Pro. And we've made incredible headway despite the chaos and crisis of not having any clubs open and our company not working at this time. But we've made a real statement around what we're prepared to do. And in a nutshell, it's become a beginner and learn from step one and not just have a conversation, but take action on it. And we've made that commitment to do that despite everything else that we're trying to make happen right now. And at CanFit Pro, we're blessed to have one of our 8 leaders be a very incredibly humble Black man, Robert Robinson, who has helped us, and he has helped us form a strategy and a committee. And we've decided we're going to make this an incredible, integral part of our values and our culture starting now, starting 2 weeks ago. And we have made the actions to at least evaluate where we're at and understand what we need to do to be in a better position to have more diversity in the fitness industry, to welcome the inclusivity and to have better conversations and to take more proactive action. And I'm really glad about what we've accomplished, but we have so much to do. And it's about the conversation, but it's not, the conversation is the starting place. It's what we're prepared to do to move forward. And that's why I said yes to this conversation, because I'm here to learn. And I've had many conversations with my husband, and I guess I'd say the best word to describe where I'm at is unlearning.
Yeah.
That's actually a good pivot point, because all of us know each other in some way, 1 degree separation. And I'm just speaking from my heart right now, realizing that we've all been going through life visibly in Black women and men, visibly invisible. And so it's like, I just wonder for my own self, how come we've been so invisible to you guys? You know, why have we been so invisible? Could we go back to how you were raised? Could we go back to it just in this season, as I've been processing myself, I'm like, and I'm a 6 foot, very large Black woman with blonde hair and nose ring and muscles, and still I've been invisible. And I wonder why. You know, I'm here to learn about that. I'm here to learn too about that. You know, the white cataracts, like, where did those come from? How come we've been invisible?
I just like to say, having known you, Julie, from the moment I met you backstage at a Good Life event, I've always seen you. I've always seen you as a beautiful woman yourself, who you are, Black, blonde hair, nose ring. What I saw was you. And maybe where I failed to recognize was that you are a incredibly beautiful, successful, powerful Black woman leading your industry and impacting an incredible industry where I work is fitness. I've always seen you, but I've never recognized and acknowledged you as a Black woman, because I always thought that would be racist of me to do so. I'm just being completely upfront.
No, this is a space what this space is for. And I thank you for sharing that. I think that, as you said, successful, where I would go with that is, how come we've been seen as successful, but how come it hasn't translated in the boardrooms, translated in the pay, in the wages, translated on the committees, translated in the, how come? That's what I'm so interested to really know and learn.
Yeah.
I said in our last talk that I've never heard any of my white friends, female friends, regarded as a strong white woman ever, but we hear strong Black women often. Not, you know what I mean? So just some of those little microaggressions, but yeah, I know you've seen me, Patch. I know you've seen me. some of the struggles that some of us go through behind the scenes and to have the equal opportunity.
Yeah, I think it almost comes down to, why are we not one of the early thoughts or even a first thought when it comes to picking talent, selecting, who we bring onto platforms, the hiring. That's really it, right? We're not the default setting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can probably pipe in a bit there, because I think it's what Maureen was saying. In some strange way, I always thought, and when I think about, my work life and my personal life, it's one of the same. And my right-hand person was a Black woman for 13 years. She was my vice president for so many years. I didn't see color. So I think that's the unlearning, because if you don't see color, that person at the boardroom table is not going to be, like, you're not going to see color, and we have to. And when you talk about, making sure that, we fill the gap, that's the gap. Like, I want my Black sister, my Black brother sitting next to me. And that's because we have to see. And so I think the unlearning, and I said that early on, and I was having this conversation with my friend Kayla Gray, we're all unlearning right now. And I think that's really important. I think we need to allow ourselves to unlearn these past behaviors, because the not seeing we thought was a good thing, but it's not, because we need to see you to make sure you're, like, sitting right beside us at that boardroom table, to make sure you're able to make those decisions, so that we actually can progress, so that we can truly have reform. And I think that's why these conversations are so important, because that's the action that needs to be taken, truly.
And Victoria, I know you came off mute. Did you want to add something?
Yes, I was going to say a couple things. First of all, Julie, I'm going to tell you, I have been told many a time I'm a strong woman. So I think
strong white woman,
assertive, aggressive.
No. Strong white woman.
No.
Okay.
Right.
That's
right.
the statement.
Right.
Strong white woman, strong
right.
Black woman.
Yeah. And what I would say around, so why are you, Inc., when you say, why are you not at the boardroom table? There's this, and I'm seeing all these conversations around, many years ago, I would have said I didn't see color, but I realized how wrong that I was in saying that, because as an advocate around diversity and inclusion, to see things move forward, there needs to be intentionality in that. And so we can't just, naturally let it all happen. So for me as a leader, that has meant, I need to hold myself and others accountable to bringing people to the table. As a woman for a second, I mean, there's lots of stats, and Jody can quote them all, I'm sure, given the world she's lived in the last few years around, women who don't believe in applying for a job if they don't meet all of the criteria, like 9 or 10 out of 10, right? Men will do that at 6, right? So there's, that piece. So we need to be in those of us with privilege and a seat at the table need to be wrapping our arms around intentionally lifting others up. The experience, the race, absolutely, which we're here to talk about, but the complete diversity across the spectrum. We, again, with privilege, need to look really cold-heartedly at ourselves in the mirror, recognize the bias that exists, recognize we need to see color to be able to bring some intention to this.
Mm-hmm. And I think we need to see Black, because we see South Asian, we see Asian, we see Latin, we see some shades. So, we need to see Black, because there's a lot that's covered in the diversity and inclusion. The boxes are ticked off. And then there are certain cultures, this isn't necessarily the conversation for it, but they don't, some cultures, some non-white cultures don't see themselves as ethnic. They just see themselves as Canadian. So they're not even fighting a cultural fight. They're happy to be the anchor in that news station. They're happy to be the head of that technology company. They're happy they sometimes have married outside of their race. They figured out how to make their creamy babies, and they've now dashed away their life from wherever that country was that they came from, or their grandparents came from, parents. So there's there's nitty gritties. There's nitty gritties where Black kind of it fades to Black. actually fades because we're covered with diversity and inclusion, right? Just a nugget. And I see it in the media. If you see, I'm born in Canada. Most, if not all of us are. So you might have noticed over the past 10, 15 years that a lot of the news anchors are Indian or some sort of South Asian.
Mhm.
They cover the box. They tick it. They're
Mhm.
cool. They present themselves the way the white media needs them to present themselves.
Mhm.
And that puts Black correspondents and journalists still sitting in the back of the bus, for example, right? Just something to take note. You might notice it even more now after this conversation.
And I know Colleen just joined us, and just before, as a way to introduce her, it's interesting because on, Ju's comment about diversity and inclusion, there's a lot of organizations that, oh, we have diversity and inclusion, and we're such a diverse organization, and you'll see posts, and I'll be honest with you, like even last year, it got to a point where it was like, am I the token? Like, being one of the only Black leaders in tech, along with Colleen, because I was often asked to do a lot of things. I was featured on a number of, and I had to watch myself because tokenism is not great either. And it's interesting because when you can now just sort of say women in tech and we're diverse, so they put a picture of me up there, it shows diversity and inclusion. But it also, when I'm on the inside, there's disparity in the organization. So when you're showing diversity and inclusion, but there's disparity at the upper levels of your organization, I've heard recently that that's hypocrisy.
Mhm.
And you're strategically arranging and aesthetically arranging the furniture so it looks pleasing. It looks like you're in the game when you're not, right? And so that was big for me. And I recognize that any space that I'm in, I have to start to be bold to hold people accountable, because there's a lot of Black people that look up to the Black leaders in our organization. And I'll ask Colleen to introduce herself in a minute. And what a lot of people don't realize, and sorry, it makes me emotional, sorry, is sometimes it's hard. I felt like an imposter the other day because I'm not striving to still break the ceilings, because sometimes you get tired. And yet there's all these people who are like, oh my God, I aspire to be you. And I'm like, damn, that's not a high ceiling, I'm at an AVP, there's not so, but when you recognize that, when you have a huge base of Black employees, that you want them to show up every day at work and put in their best self and be empowered and believe they have goals in the contact center. Some people are looking at their group leaders as an aspirational goal. Imagine that, because they need to see somebody up above them doing something to know that they can at least achieve that. So think about how low the ceiling is, and then think of the pressure it puts on my shoulders and Colleen's shoulders, and when we hold these roles, right? Because we're struggling as well. So Colleen, welcome.
And just to add to what you just said, it's not only to set an example for others, but it's also, we appear to be the ones pulling others up.
Yeah.
And providing that heartfelt coaching and mentorship and sponsorship that many in our community need. Bless you, darling. So, hi everyone. I apologize for being late. My name is Colleen Ward, and as Ink had mentioned, I too am a TV technology executive, and I've been with the bank for over 5.5 years. And truth is that since I've been an executive, which recently a bio was written about me, I realized I've been one for over 20 years and have slept with a phone underneath my pillow for over 21 years as the owner of assets for financial institutions that operate 24/7, 365 days a year. So it's been a very labor-intensive life that I've lived, and realize that this is a consuming job, along with being deeply passionate about my community and the representation of my community in the corporate space, in the financial sector, in technology, as well as not just within the workplace, but outside of the workplace. I am just as invested in my community, and making certain that those who come from often now representing some intersectionality, humble beginnings. I come from Rexdale. I used to live in Malton. In fact, where all the excitement's been happening was the corner that I lived on for many years. I worked at Westwood Mall in the Beckers. So I know
Beckers.
What? So
Wow.
just representing the breadth there, as well, I was raised by a single Jamaican mom. So many components have influenced my industrious nature. And it is, I often have, it was just of late, in fact, that I realized in speaking with Inc., and her circumstances being slightly different than mine, although we're under the same umbrella, so to speak, that often I focus on encouraging my community to be extraordinarily industrious and always achieve above and beyond. It's all about your results. And never once did I think about your network and who you have as your sponsors and your mentors. I focused purely on results because that's where I've come from. And I've realized in the last couple of years that what a disservice I may have done to my community, that I should have been promoting more the networks and getting to know people. And similarly, I just finished actually a call with the Black Professionals in Technology Network for an hour and a half, talking with several members who are part of a task force to help with, we're calling it the pandemics now, multiple pandemics, post-COVID, as well as anti-Black racism in general. And realize one of the big things for me is why, as a community, do we need to educate others, non-Black, on our experience. I feel like if we were chosen, either as friends or as colleagues, and often, you know, you make friends with your colleagues, you have casual exchanges, or if we were chosen to be their hires, because often I've been inherited by most of my leaders as opposed to chosen by my leader. And what a different dynamic it would be if they learned their experience by becoming connected with us. And that's probably my next mission, to help my non-Black colleagues and non-Black friends increase the concentration of their Black colleagues and friends and get to know us organically rather than watching YouTube videos and reading Instagram posts. I think if you feel it with us, live it with us, I think that would resonate that much more than simply reading a CBC Life article or other forms of media as your point of reference to the Black community.
Awesome. If you feel it with us, live it with us.
Yes.
There's some, I just want to make sure there's the people are the chat is active and the questions are coming in. So I'm just going to put out a question. One of the first ones I think somebody had talked about, and this Jody, this might have been you, about good intentions having a meaningful impact. And so what action should we take to change good intentions to meaningful impact? So maybe even McKinney, if you want to even start first.
I mean, action. I mean, it's great to say that someone's an ally, but I feel like action is necessary. No, like that's the only way to get results in anything. And being accountable for your actions, but long-term actions.
Anyone else?
I can share a thought. So, you know, and one thing I'd love to talk about, and I'll put it in the parking lot for now because it's not related to this question, is about building trust. And I think we could have a really interesting dialogue about that in terms of long term. And I would love to listen to different perspectives around how we build long-term trust together. But in terms of the question you asked, so back to something, Victoria, you said earlier around stats, because I think data is helpful to understand sometimes the magnitude of what we are talking about. Less than 1% of VC venture capital funding in this country and frankly in the United States goes to Black founders. Less than 1%. And when you think about why that matters, when you think about actually, if you look at the stats of how many entrepreneurs are Black, starting businesses, but not getting funded, the gap is massive. And so for me, you know, as I've been reflecting personally, and I can only share my own personal lived experience, you know, you think about there's so many, I could do this. How do I lend my privilege in a meaningful way, long-term and platform? I feel mad about that stat. It just really upsets me and it feels egregious. And so in my heart and soul, I feel like an action personally that I can take is work on changing what that number is. And I think that there is what we talk about, which, you know, I've seen some of the questions come in around performative allyship, and there's what we do. And I'm sharing this because I think it's important to understand that sometimes to my white friends, our actions can be small and impactful at the same time when we have a ripple effect of the accumulation of our small actions. So I made, for example, a personal commitment to coach Black founders as much as possible. Many Black founders meaningfully to support and engage, as well as to partner with Black friends of mine who are doing work already. So lending my platform and privilege to amplify, support, engage, listen, their efforts. Amoy Henry, for example, Claudette McGowan, doing work to advance Black founders. So this isn't like, I'm not going to come in as the white person and solve the problem or be a savior or any, none of that is appropriate as far as my current learning and understanding goes. But I have a duty to act and to do something to change something that needs to be changed with all that I have and that I can. And I think sometimes when we don't know what to do because the problem is so big, we just don't do anything versus the opportunity to take some small steps towards making some lasting marathon impact. And for me, choosing that particular area that really I feel in my soul, given everything depends on technology in our future, and there's so many Black founders that have incredible ideas to contribute to the world and just really need us all to wrap our arms around enabling access to networks and capital. For me, that's an area that I chose. It's not the perfect solution. It's not a solution. It's just a step. It's a small little step. But I share it from the perspective of if there's anyone wondering, is there a tangible thing I could do around something you're passionate about, and just do it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Perfect's the enemy of good. Just start, and then you'll listen and learn and get better. Anyway, enough for me. But I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Natasha.
Yeah, I think there's a big distinction between sponsorship and mentorship. And it's one thing to mentor, it's another thing to sponsor, which means you're going to bring your sponsor with you in this at the same level exactly where you are and help them rise above. And that is the difference. And I think that we need to really sort of go beyond mentorship and really look at how do we turn that into sponsorship, because all of the speakers here, we have the honor and the privilege to be able to mentor. We need to sponsor. And that is just, to me, it sounds simple, but it's what we need to be doing. And that's an action I really feel that we actually all need to take.
And I think that's really key because, and this could be even just in your personal life, and like at the end of the day, I think there's, as you step into a role of a sponsor, even if you step into this role of ally or co-conspirator, is you have to actually ask yourself in your life, what problem are you trying to solve? Are you trying to solve a problem where you have been really oblivious to what is going on? If you have an organization, are you solving a problem where that might even just sit at the stakeholders, right? Like your shareholders, sorry. So you have to, you might have to go there and really understand what is the problem and see how we eradicate that. Because I think the sponsorship is really, really great. But I think even as a sponsor, if you haven't figured out what you're up against, it makes it a little bit more challenging, right? And so what problem are, like, I'll be honest with you, right now there's a lot of people that want to reach out and help a lot of Black people, and some of them don't know if it's token, if it's, you know, they're just doing it because, you know, somebody's just trying to do something, or do they really, really believe that in their talent and want to help them rise, right? So I think it's also really important that we just confirm what are we really trying to solve, and before you pick up somebody and say, you know what, I want to care, I want to take you with me, and I want to help elevate you. Because the worst thing is you land them somewhere, the problem hasn't been solved, and they don't have a good ring fence around them to help them succeed.
Yeah, I want to just chime in on it. Goes back to what Victoria was speaking about too, about intentionality. You know, go in the beginning of our conversation about the why. Right now, there's a lot of, to echo Enk's sentiments, there's a lot of companies that, and with white leadership, that want to do something, that have large pocketbooks, large checkbooks and all that. Their pockets run deep, you know what I'm saying? But as the Black community, Enk and I were speaking about this, we spoke about this many times actually. There's certain cliques within the Black community that know how to do the song and dance, that will get the funding, but it doesn't always serve the Black community. There's popularity, and I'm not even talking about Julie Black popularity, because trust me, we have not gotten sponsorship. Empowered in My Skin and 100 Strong and Sexy is self-funded. Has been since 2015. Okay? Yeah. Decks aren't good enough. This, all that other stuff. But then there are those in the community, and McKinney knows what I'm talking about too. And there's this Afrocentric thing, because this is the space that you guys are getting put onto game too, right? To be mindful of those who come with a shiny package and they build a nice house in Jamaica and Nigeria. You know, when we as friends are able to be at that same table like you guys were talking about, and this table that we're building right now, then we'll start to understand what the true needs are, and even what the wants are. Because Dr. Maya Angelou said people do what they want, not what they need. So it's like, what do you really want to do? Right now, there are companies saying, this is what we need to do. All right, we put some money behind this, BPOC, you know, Black Lives Matter, put up a black square. But what do you want to do? That's what you have to ask yourself at night. And when you wake up in the morning, like, what do I want to do really?
Let me ask you though, Julie, what do you want us to do?
I want you guys to be super honest and transparent about the racist grandparents, parents. If it was Christianity that was preaching about thinking that we're all equal, but we're really not, as far as I want diarrhea at the mouth. I want diarrhea at the mouth. Because until the diarrhea at the mouth happens, we're still just doing this dance around this issue. When my mom used to say, it's a island thing, but she used to say, Jew, blood follow vein. And she used to say it all the time. Blood, she used to say, I was like my dad, basically. Blood follow vein, you're just like your father. Blood follow vein, you're just like your grandfather. All these parables, all these little proverbs. It's in the molecules. It's in us, all of us. We have learned how to even be so afraid of white privilege and white power and white fragility. Oh no, girl, don't say that. Oh no, don't even, like, there's so much. This conversation could go on for 5 hours. So what I'm gonna say, what I want, I say this on CTV News, E-Talk, ET Canada, Global. I say it to Jesus, I say it to Oprah, I say it to whomever, Bill Gates. Teach me about your whiteness. Teach me about that whiteness, that true privilege, not the 90, 75-minute Chelsea Handler. I watched it, it was cool, but I'm like, what else? You know, like, dear white people, what's it really like to be out there and to never have to fret or to worry, to know that even if you bathe a homeless white person, they have more status in society than Julie and Nkechi and McKinney and Colleen. If you wash them off, go get them an outfit.
They say there's so to really hammer that home, Ahmaud Arbery, the man who killed him, his parents grew up in the Jim Crow era, right? And so that guy never stood a chance of doing the right, of even considering thinking the right way. And so Ju's right? And I think part of the unlearning, and maybe that's a good question, is that as we're unlearning, how much of it is really reflecting on how did you grow up? Like, and how cool was your household as it related to Black people? Like, if you came home with a Black man, how would that be viewed? And, or your children, is it cool for your children? And if it's cool with you, is it cool with your cousin and the auntie and the uncle? And, you know, like, what is it? Like, I'll be honest with you, I'll start. My parents came, so Nigerian, African heritage, and they came to Canada. My dad, you know, got an education at McGill University and got a job at Bell Canada, started making really great money. And he moved us into an all white neighborhood. There was no Black people. We were the only speckles, right? And part of that built a mindset in me that I was better than people that lived in like full Black communities, right? That is armor and untruth that I've had to shed over the years, you understand? Because that even just created a belief system in me that saw me better than, you understand? And so, you know, that's what we're talking about. That's the unlearning. The unlearning that is so untrue. And I have to be confident enough to actually share with my parents, you know, that's, wow, I really got it all wrong, you know, believing that, you know, and so that's what we're talking about. Like, what has been true? What are those unlearnings that you're really open to share? Because there's a lot of white people listening here today, then just need that ping to say, oh, that's an aha. Yeah, just today, Colleen, I had to wake up, and she says it's happened to me before, but with all the conversations I had sitting at a table, just really just having banter back, somebody said, relax. I was like, I am relaxed. But Colleen's like, that's a microaggression. I was like, yeah, but you know, so you know, there's and I realized that there was just this learning in me that really ignored that those things kind of could happen to me, you know. And so it's even that. So what are the things that you guys have started to realize that you have to unlearn?
May I just share a comment? I had the privilege last year to attend a Move the Dial event where Masai was speaking. And I'll confess, I felt terribly ill later that night, but I was transformed. He shared a viewpoint that recently, and one of my leaders had shared a link to a Morgan Freeman interview that was done on 60 Minutes with Mike Wallace, it was a number of years ago, but the same messaging where Masai had shared that he had worked so hard, he had incurred debt in order to build credibility and build his network, that he got to a point that he could walk into a room and his narrative did not include that he was the only Black man in the room. His narrative was that I am smart, I am capable, they need me. They need my network, they need my experience. And I'm innovative and I'm walking in the room as the smartest man in the room. And he said he stopped the narrative of assessing that he was the only Black man in the room with an accent, And he said, I put that aside. I know what I'm capable of. So Ink, when you say that you want to unlearn, I want you to learn it again. I don't think your parents did you a disservice. And I don't want you to allow any microaggression or anybody who attempts to diminish you. I almost feel like you should be ignorant to that. I want you can't be talking to me like that. Do you know who I am? I'm and that's maybe the privilege that you were gifted that you're now not taking advantage of. I feel like I want that. When you walk in the room with your carry-on of food and you exclaim, "Great day, everyone." I want to have that kind of courage and be embraced, and you are. And likewise, I have some colleagues I believe on the line as well, who have embraced me for who I am. And I absolutely feel privileged that they are. Now I need that to grow exponentially. Mm-hmm. I need my handful of colleagues who have embraced me and accepted that I'm loud, outspoken, forthright. I might, break out into a dance just randomly in a meeting because a lyric pops in my head. That kind of energy, I want them to embrace it in all of us. Mm-hmm. And I want that to be acceptable and that we still belong and we're worthy. And it's not because of complexions and heritage. It's just because we are wonderful energy and human. And that is the human thing to do. Mm-hmm. As humans, we need to embrace us all.
I have to say this, Colleen. I often say, God can't bless who you pretend to be. So all of that's good if you believe that about yourself. There are lots of, I'm going to Black people, that will do the twirl and dance, and that's fear. I'm not saying all. So if you believe that to be true about yourself, then twirl, do backflips, twerk. But when you go into these spaces and it's some sort of imposter, we got to unpack that on our own on the side. And I'm going to say this because we're being transparent. Hank and I have been friends for 20 something years. And we've had our own situations. One in particular, you may not remember this one. We were at a restaurant and she spoke to us, a waiter a certain kind of way. And I didn't like the way you spoke to him. And we spoke about that on the side because this is the thing about life experience. So I personally don't think it's a one size fit all, because that guy that's at Joey that maybe forgot that you don't want salt on your fries, it's how you tell him that you don't want the salt on your fries, right? And that autopsies could influence how you tell that man how you don't want your salt on your fries. So I think that I'm seeing, and I agree with where you're coming from, if that's who you know yourself to be for true. If that's who you believe you are to be, 100%. But if you're putting on some show, God can't bless who you pretend to be. And
but I think in corporate, what I do see is a lot more Black people are preventing themselves from being who God blessed them to be. They're putting on an armor that they think is acceptable to the white person. Like, that's more the conversations that we're having. They're not coming to work in their full selves because they recognize they're either going to be seen as, the angry Black woman, the angry Black man. They're trying to conform. They feel that they need to, whatever, whether it's the hair, the way they dress, the way that they talk, how they walk, and all this and the other. So, to Colleen's point is like, when we talk about, truly bringing our authentic self to work, yeah, you have to kind of figure out who that is. And then once you can do that, do it. And don't be afraid of any backlash. I think that that's all important. I think, and that's the teaching that you can give to your colleagues, your non-Black colleagues, that, we're often telling people now that come to one of our parties. If you come to one of our parties, you think we're fighting. We're not fighting. We're actually bantering, we're having a good time. Just come hang out with more Black people. You know what I mean? Like, and then you start to get to know who we are. And then anyway, so I do want to go back to that one question though, because I think it's really important, because I want to know, what is it that white people are unlearning? Because that's almost like asking you the question, what do you say about us when you're not in the room? Mm-hmm.
I'm going to step in and say what I'm learning is not to assume, because I'm assuming that when people want to step into leadership roles, become presenters, that they will simply do it. And because for everyone to step in and to apply for a promotion or to step into a role that you may feel that because of your race, you're not going to be considered for. But if you don't step in, you don't give it a shot, you don't apply, how do you know? And, you know, you need to trust that not all organizations are going to judge they're not suitable or this person's suitable or this whatever, because that's not fair either. And I love what you said, Colleen, because you know what? We need you to be authentic, and we need you to be your authentic self, because that's who we're looking for. I get challenged. You know, we made it an effort at CanFit Pro 5 years ago because we got a lot of criticism around why our keynote speakers are not female. They were male keynote speakers. And I got called on it in a panel discussion at some point, and I said, because women aren't applying. They're not submitting. They're not putting themselves out there. They don't feel worthy enough. They don't have enough skill. Why me? And I would say it's the same goes for Black and people of color applying. You know, I assume that if a Dion Mason wants to be a speaker, she's going to apply. And it was only because I reached out to her as a woman recognized for Fitness Professional of the Year. I said, you should be speaking. And she literally talked herself out of it. And I mentored her, but I also challenged her. And she has done such incredible work since. So I'm going to say that I've been assuming that people, no matter their race, their gender, their sexual preference, etc., if they want something, they're going to step into it and they're going to apply for it. But I made that assumption, and now I know that it's my responsibility to go seek and find and connect with different networks and invite referrals from people I trust and know. Ink, Julie, you know, you said to me before this webinar, you know, you got to meet McKinney, you got to talk to her. And I'm like, connect me, because that's my commitment.
And I think that I like that you said that at the end, is that's an action, right? Like so Victoria, I know you asked, what do you want us to do? Is there is an assumption that, you know, I think generally that people are going to apply. You see it all the time, just with hiring and hiring practices, but there's also a need when you look left and right and you look at you can't be blind. Like, you have to see what your environment looks like. And is that the environment that you want? Like, to what Julie said, you don't do what you need to do. You do what you want to do. Are you good with how your table looks? Are you good with, you know, on your social media? If you look at your organization and you're like, oh, let me just check out who I've got here in my organization. You know, do you feel good about that? And if you don't, then you need to go out and seek. And I also say to Black people, though, there's also to Maureen's, it's no different than being a woman and we look at a job description and we feel like we need to have all of the qualifications in order to be able to apply. I'll put myself out there. I was nominated again for Women of Influence, the RBC, Women of Influence. And I'll be honest with you, I went and looked at the past winners. And sometimes, as bad as this is, on like, you know, I need to now just be more bold and apply. You see, there's always the one. I think for the last couple of years, there's always been one Black girl. And I'm like, what's the chance it's going to be me? And then you don't apply. Like, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm also saying that sometimes when you don't actually see that it's possible, oftentimes we count ourselves out. And so it's both sides of the fence. We have to do better at counting ourselves in, like Colleen was saying. And then the other thing is that, like, I'm just tired of people being so blind. Like, I'm hoping this is really opening up people's eyes to really look at, you know, for example, like award systems, like, what does our stages really look like? Like, if we put everyone on the stage for the last 20 years, would we be happy with that? Would that feel good? You know?
Well, I can speak to the Junos, 43 years, 44 years, never a Black female host, one biracial host, Drake. I'm 42, so you do the math. And then Russell Peters. That's it. That's it. For 40 plus years. I sat on the Juno board for 5 years. I said, let me be on the committee. Let me be a board member. Let me vote. Let me, you know what I mean? And so those cataracts are still there. And so that's where it's hard. I'm trying to find that, gain that understanding. How are we going to get that LASIK surgery with the white eyes? because the cataracts are still there. So what's the root cause of the cataracts? What's the root cause? Still haven't spoken about it till now. What's the root cause of the cataracts? Yeah.
So I've been feeling like I want to, you asked that question, and it's really important that you invited us here to have real dialogue. So I want to share, you asked about what it feels like to be white and to talk about that. And it's a bit scary, but I'm going to do it anyway because we're having real talk. So I can't answer the question broadly. I can only speak to my own lived experience. So I grew up in a white house with a white family, going to Jewish day school with white people. I went to programs with white people. I played with white people. I didn't actually meet and get to know a Black person until I went to high school, where I had made the decision deliberately to go to public school because I felt like I was too white and didn't know anybody else. And it wasn't as conscious as that when I was 17 years old or 16, 13 and made that decision, but I knew I was craving a different experience. Then I went to the Jewish neighborhood public school, where I made friends with one Black person and everybody else was white and Jewish and privileged. And, I feel shame and guilt in telling this story, but it is the truth of my story. You want to have a real talk, and I want to honor that you want to have a real talk. So shame and guilt in telling you this story, and shame and guilt that then I got into the university that I wanted to go to, the fancy business school, and then I got into the law school, and I have had ease and luck at every opportunity to apply, work hard, and get what I want. And that is part of my whiteness. And that is not something I understood until I made not one or two, but a number of real close Black friends who I've been learning from and living with and getting to know and understanding. Like, my table is now different. And I don't say that for a pat on the back. I'm grateful and blessed to have amazing human beings in my life that include a number of Black women who have taught me about the privilege of my whiteness, and that I could never have sat and had this conversation ever before to sort of say, holy shit, I'm lucky, and my sponsorship decks get the money. And how do I change? How do I share? And, like, no matter what I do or have done, it's not like my awareness of my white privilege and literally my success in life because of the color of my skin and the wealth and my sexuality and all of the things that I grew up with has never been more apparent to me, quite honestly, even in this conversation, more and more. So, and that leads me to the other thing that I wanted to talk about and listen about is trust. So Ketch and Colleen, actually, this is a really personal and profound moment, because two of my friends who I believe, we are working hard at building trust. And what does trust look like? And trust taking time. And, I can share, for me, once I had sort of, I would say, earlier version of my journey, but still a very profound and important moment in my journey, was like, I'm not going to have one Black person on my stage and think that that's going to bring in Black people to my community. I have to have 50% of my speakers be Black. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to do it. And even after doing that, it still took us 2 years for you to look at me in the eye, Ketch, and say, okay, now I trust you. And by the way, we're still building it. It will be lifetime of learning. So I think it's also important as white people and to share the experience of, like, knowing that, like, I don't, as a white person in a leadership position with a great platform, know what to do or what is ever going to be a step that is meaningful or impactful. What I know is that I want to listen and learn and hear and have you say, if I make a mistake or do something that you think is not authentic or performative, call me in on that, right? And we have to, I think, invite that conversation. Anyway, it's enough of my voice, but I wanted to answer your question and honor your desire for real talk, even though I'm a little bit, it's very raw.
No, and if I could, and Jody, actually, I don't mind even just saying it publicly. That was also, so I went to your first move, my first Move the Dial was 2 years ago, and I sat in that audience And while I enjoyed the event, I think I might have even mentioned it to you, Ju, definitely didn't feel like it was an event for me, you know, like that's just how I felt. But as tough as it was, the conversation I had with you was extremely rewarding. And the fact that you immediately, you probably had already had some conversations, and I think at that time you'd already recognized it, and you're like, let's do it. Let's really change the landscape. And it was a complete it would be 180. Yeah, complete 180 the next year. And for me, and whoever went to move the dial, that, I don't know, McKinney, if you were there, or Colleen, to be able to walk, and Julie, you were there, but to be able to walk around and meet a lot of Black women was a very different experience this time around. Yeah. So it's those things, like somebody said it before, you can't fix a lot, but even just that, and continuing, like you just said, continue to even do more than that. Those are just the things that we want to continue to see happen, where you guys can, right? Like, you can't fix all you can't rebuild the policies and regulate.
But I think
I want to actually
speaking. Sorry, I just wanted to say you played a very instrumental role in that, because you spoke in the Brave space and we connected as women, as humans, and that changes the game. It's this whole dancing around. Sorry, Julie, but what you say when we don't talk about it and we make like it's nice or like it's not a problem when we bullshit, and it doesn't change.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can appreciate that. Like, in this space, there's a lot of grace being offered. There's a lot of humility. I wanted to speak, ask Natasha, actually, because we run in similar spaces, just about the PR world and, you know, the media and magazine and all that stuff. Like, you know, what have been your challenges, if any, with presenting Black clients? Or, you know, because I know what my challenges have been, and I've actually had success. So, you know, just curious in that landscape.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of unlearning in that landscape right now. I think that what we're doing is definitely having those very open conversations to make sure that there's full representation in campaigns. And when I say full representation, you know, and you said this really well early on, it's everything sort of masked in diversity and inclusion. By full representation, I mean, we need to see Black. And so that's really important. And you said it also, it's like when we look at the media, we will see a South Asian person, we will see, and sort of masked under diversity. That has to change. There is difference, and we need to see color. And so I feel, you know, you and I are in the same world, and I think there's a lot that needs to change in that space. But on the flip side, you know, I look at our clients, and I really do feel like, you know, like I was just thinking the other day, like, for example, I was talking to Janet Jackson, who we know, and she was saying to me, you know, one of the biggest issues in our world right now is that, for example, and Kayla was saying this as well, white people will have hair and makeup done backstage before they go on a talk show. Black people won't, because there isn't someone that's able to actually do their hair or their makeup. Same with like runway models. So I feel like what's happening right now is that's the stuff that has to change. And so we have this opportunity right now to make sure that that changes. And so this dialogue, you know, as we're having it, the key outcome has to be action. What are we going to do to change that? And so Janet and I were talking about this, and she's like, I really need to focus my efforts on making sure that in cosmetology school that we have Black representation so that there's a change there. And so, you know, from my standpoint, like, we're lending our platform to make sure that happens, because that's the only way. Like, we can have these conversations, people can be reposting things on social media, but truly, what is the action that's going to be taken coming out of this? And in our world, those are the things that need to happen. It's not okay that the white anchor gets her hair and makeup done, but the Black anchor does not. She has to worry about her own sponsorship for her fashion because her body shape is different than, you know, the white anchor. Like, these are the conversations Kayla and I were having, and I didn't even realize that. Like, that's white privilege. So those are the changes that we actually have an opportunity to truly affect. And that's one small aspect of our world that I feel, you know, needs to change, and we'll do our part to ensure that that's one of the small things that does happen.
Yeah, that's big. I want you to recognize that it's not small. I say that because you see, confidence is currency. So when dwelling in that space, doing the e-talk thing, red carpets, this, that, having to worry about my hair, it takes me out of my zone. When I'm getting ready to interview so-and-so, I'm trying to figure out my hair. Do they have my makeup shade? So just so you know, it's not small. You know what I mean? It's big to know that somebody is looking out for your best interests, and that so that you could do your best work. It's big. Know it. Don't minimize it, because when confidence, you could go in there, ain't knows. When I go in there, I have nothing. I don't have to think about anything but just doing my best work.
But those are things, Julie, I didn't even know. I didn't know that, like, that's even happening. So these conversations are important so we know, so we can change that. Like, that's not okay. And so, and you're right, confidence is currency.
Yeah.
There's a good question here that says, for non-BIPOC, so Black and Indigenous people of color, what difficult conversations have you had or been confronted with among your own non-BIPOC friends, partners, or colleagues since the racism crisis has gone mainstream? So if you had opposing tension, like you wanting to do good work, you showing up here in sign, you know, shows what you wanted, that you want to be better, you want to be better ally. But have you had tension conversations with people that are not so wanting to join the journey?
I haven't had conflict conversations about people not wanting to join the journey. Everybody does. Where I've had conflict is in language of how we have the conversations. And my ignorance is, I felt like I understood, but I realized I don't understand. I have empathy. So that's where I had conflict. I've had a lot of conversations, and it has come down to, which I realized tonight, unlearning. And to the comment, there was a comment that just came in about, why are people so afraid of us Black people? I think that's what the comment, I don't have my glasses on, I saw it come in. I'm not afraid of Black people at all. I'm not afraid. I'm unaware of their pain and the gap that has existed. I know there's a gap, but it's not fear. It's lack of understanding.
Is it indifference?
It's indifference. Yeah, sure, I guess. It is. And you know, Jody said about her upbringing, I'm going to go one more step. I grew up in a similar environment, not Jewish, very Catholic, Anglo-Saxon Catholic neighborhood in Oakville, Ontario. And if I had brought home a Black boy, my mother would have been fine with that. If I had brought home a Black boy and I said it was my boyfriend or I was engaged, I don't think my mother would have had a problem with it. I think my community would have had a problem with it, because I just simply wasn't around it. And it was like, it was for me, high school. I had a great friend that was a Black girlfriend. And again, I guess it was when I grew up, maybe she trusted me. We had honest conversations, but it was really when I got to university, I realized the racism that existed. And I was quiet because I was frustrated, but I didn't know what to say. But yeah, I guess it's the indifference.
Can I add something? So that question about white people being afraid of Black people. So I had, I'm going to say, an experience this weekend, and I was out with a friend. We went to Dairy Queen. We were standing outside on the sidewalk, and we seen a homeless man on the other end of the sidewalk sitting there. And there were so many white people that walked by him and didn't acknowledge him whatsoever. And my friend and I have a heart to serve, and we can't stomach to see someone sitting there. We always offer to feed them. So as we were walking towards him, he looked like he was afraid. And he looked at us like, why are you coming up to me? What do you want? And when my friend said to him, are you hungry? He kind of looked at us like, what? And my friend said, are you hungry? There's a burger joint right here. you can get something to eat on me. And he looked shocked. We took him into the store. He let him buy whatever he wanted off the menu. And he sat back outside and he ate his food. And we had this conversation after, like, he was afraid of us. All white people walked by him and didn't even acknowledge him. He got fed, and we're still looked at as the bad guy or the people to fear.
Mm-hmm. There's a great story around that. So 2 points. One, I'm not sure if you guys know, but it said that somebody said, at what age does a Black man do people start fearing a Black man? 12.
Wow.
The age of 12. Imagine that.
Well, a police shot one. He was 12.
There's a great, if you get a chance, read Ray Hinton. Oh my gosh, what's the book? The sun, something about the sun shines. He was incarcerated.
Oh, the prisoner, yeah.
Yeah, he was incarcerated for 40 years. And one of the most touching things he told in this story, so he was incarcerated wrongfully, and then he was released. He was on death row, okay, 40 years, wrongfully imprisoned. And and in the cell, so they're all in 8x8 when you're on death row, 8x8. And there was a cell block 6, I think there was 8 of them. And there was a white man that came in, and he was a white supremacist, and he was brought in for killing. I think he was killed a Black man. And on his way out, as he was going to, the death chamber, he said that all his life, white people taught him to hate. Makes me emotional, sorry. And it took Black men to teach him how to love. It's powerful. Change, like, when you really think about that, I really recognize in my story, my parents never taught me hate. Ever. And it pains me. We learn it in so many different ways. We learn it by the subtleties where, like, you treat somebody a little bit different, or you say something about them, or, and I truly believe there are a lot of, and I always encourage white people, like, if you really, really want to make a difference, you have to go back to the roots. You have to go back to your foundation, because there's a belief system that all of us have grown up. It's informed all of our behaviors. I did a speech on it the other day. Like, until you can really understand what has been your default setting, we're not going to see the kind of change and transformation that we need to see. And then it's you doing that, and then it's you challenging the people. So back to you, Victoria, it's like challenging the people in your organization that have great decisions to bring Black people into leadership roles where decisions are made. Like, we want to be part of the fabric making decisions in corporate. We do. Like, trust me, we do. And we don't need another mentor. I'm sorry. We don't need another sponsor. Just hire us. Trust that we can do the job and support us. There's many
Choose us. Choose us.
Choose us. Yeah. Like, I'm serious. Like, and I get it. Like, I see a lot of people are sharing what's happening in their organizations. There's not one person that told me, they're upping their ante on mentorship. They're upping their ante on sponsorship. I'm like, just hire Black people. Just hire us. Just make a decision that we're going to hire. There's a leader, I won't name any names, that literally wrote a letter. And he stated what he's doing. And he stated the time frame. He gave a number, 10 to 15 Black people in all levels of my organization within this period of time. It's intention.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing that. I mean, maybe it's going to take time. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. But that's what we want to see. Like, we've been mentored. Trust me, we've been mentored. We have done the courses. Right now I'm trying to help. Like, there's one gentleman, I called him and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" He says, "Oh, I'm great." I said, "No, seriously, with everything that's been unfolding, how are you feeling?" "I feel good." Within 20 minutes, he was almost bawling. Because he was like, "You know what? I don't want to do another damn course. I don't get why I'm not moving to the next level." I said, "So how good do you feel right now?" Right. There a lot of Black people in your organization are holding their pain. Like in even just in your circle, they're holding pain because they don't, back to Jody, maybe they just don't trust yet.
Let me talk about trust for a second. So, and I'm actually going to ask my white sisters to help me understand this, because I've been grieving this for 11 days now, to be exact. So one of my closest friends, white friends, you know the early part of this season where it was like, I want to be a good ally, and what else could I do? And which is fine. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. But at 5, 6, 7, 8 start to get a little much, right? Then I got seems like you're going through something. And that was a trigger for me. And so the Coles notes is, I said, what do you think I could be going through right now? Wearing my Black skin for 42 years. As my one of few white friends. And I shared that her actions demonstrated some privilege and some fragility, because it got flipped. She kind of flipped it to, you're accusing me of being something that I'm not. And I'm sharing this because rather than see the strength of our relationship that I thought we developed for all these years, it ended up being, I'm cut off. She cut me off, blocked me out on her socials, cut me off completely. And so I'm trying to understand if there's some sort of, what would bring any of you, I'm not saying you would do that. Like Hank knows I'm having a hard time with this one. Because this person was there, my mother died. So the trust, this is what I'm not understanding. And I'm her one Black friend. It's hard for me, this one.
All I can say, Julie, is it's not you, it's her. It's her stuff. And it's not you. And I'm only putting myself in those shoes. And she's got issues she's working through, and she's deflecting or becoming defensive as a protection for herself, but it's her stuff. It's not about you. But unfortunately, you're getting the wrath of her actions. I trust that she will come back to you.
Has anyone else had any sharp conversations with maybe your Black friends that kind of put you up a bit?
I'll share. So so first of all, I'm going to share a little my background. So, Anglo-Saxon family, but I grew up with a mom who was so incredibly liberal, who encouraged me to date Black men because she thought they were so beautiful, yet being married to a white man herself. So I have dated, and several of my best friends are Black. So I recently had a conversation with one who's very, very close to me, Jamaican Canadian, but married an American now, who he himself is biracial. And as we were talking about it, and I asked, what I could do to support, and we were going on in conversation. And she said to me, is it wrong that I don't want my 2 Black boys to ever marry a white woman? And I left it. I think in a different time, I might've challenged her. That'll make me, you can see that makes me emotional, because I thought, I feel like my entire life I've been supporting the people I've dated, my friends. I've been an advocate, and way more than I think an ally and a voice. And but it caused me to sort of sit back and say that for me was the moment where I realized, I really don't understand.
Pain.
Her pain, no, her pain, all of your pain. I don't understand. If, she went to Havergal, by the way, for, was the only Black girl, or one of very few, well-to-do, Toronto private school for those who aren't in the city, right? And I just thought, oh my God, how? And it's interesting. And so that the most difficult conversation for me I've had during these last many weeks, but just because it hurt me, but then I haven't raised it with her, but then I reflected on it over the last couple of weeks and thought, again, maybe it's because I don't understand. Or I haven't done enough. But then again, it's her lived experience outside of what I bring to our friendship.
That's big.
That's big.
And I hope you know that you can, I hope you will talk to her about it, because I think that that's also important. That's big. I felt that.
Yeah. But you didn't cut her off. You're still friends.
Oh, no.
She understood that that's her pain, right? Yeah.
Right.
She held space for her pain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jody, sorry.
Thank you for sharing that, Victoria. And also, just to leave it just before I say anything, I'm so sorry for your pain over this. I feel it as much as I can't imagine it, but I can feel it through the screen, and it's awful. So I would say, I had a really powerful conversation with a good friend of mine who expressed to me a few days after George Floyd's murder. I hadn't reached out to her yet by text message. And, I had made the decision to slowly reach out to my friends one at a time in an authentic way, but truthfully didn't really know what to say, because what can you say? Other than I'm thinking of you, I'm here for you. None of it really felt right. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I wanted my words to my friends to be meaningful and perfect, which was a lesson for me when I tell you the story of perfect being the enemy of good. And my dear friend, Yvonne, and we talk about this publicly in the talks that we're doing, so she, I know, is comfortable with me sharing the story, called me up, and she called me right in. And she said, basically, like, what the hell? Like, it's been a few days and I haven't heard from you. And it really hurts my heart.
Yeah.
And, she really needed to share her pain for quite a long time. And I listened to it, and I didn't say anything. Other than I'm so sorry for hurting you. And, as a result of us having a very real conversation about me hurting her by not reaching out to her proactively faster. And, as a result of that, we had a very courageous conversation. She invited me to participate with 10 white leaders and 10 of her Black friends to have a real conversation, very, very similar in sentiment to this conversation. I listened to one person after another of her friends share their lived experience of covert and overt racism. I was shaken to my core in terms of a new level of insight by that experience. And then she asked me to partner on another one that we're doing Thursday evening, inviting a number of my white leader friends to listen to her friends. And so the outcome when you go in versus shut out can actually be profound. I think we're more connected now than we ever have been. But I was an asshole by not reaching out to her earlier. And I'm so grateful that she called me in because it made me really realize the level of pain that she was feeling and how I needed to show up for her and my other Black friends who find that supportive and helpful. And so can't explain why your friend did what she did, but can only say I'm so sorry for your pain, and maybe it, hopefully other friends can be there to support you and hear you in your pain and show up for you. And
yeah, thank you all. Thanks for sharing the help, for sure.
So I want to ask, so sorry, there's a great question in the chat, first of all. And then I do want to ask, do you have questions that myself, McKinney, Colleen, Julie can help answer or clarify? So there is a question here that asked, sorry, and I feel bad for all the people that are asking questions. Sorry, we didn't get to all of your questions. Oh my gosh, where did it go? Did you, I think this would be for us. So Stacey, it's from a Stacey McAllister Williams. I think you know Stacey McAllister, right?
Oh yeah.
So is there anything wrong with asking someone about their cultural background? I have learned it can be offensive to ask someone where they are from. I'm proud to share my heritage versus people assuming where I'm from. What is the best way to phrase this question?
Colleen, I think Colleen should answer that one.
because you know that I get asked that question at least once a week.
Stop.
I'm not kidding.
I know.
Oh, no.
I know. And unfortunately, I've had to coach people on how to ask the question. It's something that I've been doing actively for a number of years, because people would sometimes approach me and say, "What are you?"
Mhm.
And I say, "Human."
Mhm.
And they said, "No, no, no, like, where are you from?" And I said, "I was just born down the road, St. Joseph's Hospital." That's, and they say, "Come on." And so I've taught people to approach it with grace and respect, and men too, because men have a grossly inappropriate way sometimes to pursue the question. So I often say what my mother's taught me: you attract bees with honey. And so I would say, "Oh my goodness, Julie, you are so beautiful. You're so beautiful. What's your heritage, love?" I love how your eyes, your eyebrows, I love your, I shower people with compliments. I acknowledge positive traits. And it's a big deal for me to represent Jamaica. So when people ask me what I am, I was born in Canada, raised by a single Jamaican mom, and deep in my Jamaican culture and heritage. And that's how I represent myself. That's how I identify. It's by my culture, my heritage. Because I think, in fact, Black people have often confused Black as the color of someone's skin. And there's no one on here that actually has a Black complexion. We're all varying shades of brown. I consider myself a really rich cafe au lait. And and I think we also come from a variety of backgrounds. And sometimes people, coincidentally, some people often default to Jamaica as the place where all the Black people come from, right? And it's not. There's all kinds of islands and countries. In fact, Africa is a continent.
Yeah.
With over 50 countries, and so it's educating people on that. I've in fact made it almost a personal mission to help educate people on what Black really means, and how broad and diverse Black is.
Mm-hmm. And to be, I think the key thing too is, I mean, there's nothing more worse than you tell somebody so oftentimes I have to catch myself, because I often say I'm Nigerian before I say I'm Canadian. So I'm Canadian born. My background is Nigerian. So I kind of just give it all at one time. But they're like, "Really? I thought you were Jamaican." So I think the respect is not questioning after the person has shared their truth. Right? Like, this is where I'm from.
Like a disappointment or something.
So yeah, I want to make sure, is there anything that we can help you understand? Is there, like, Victoria asked a really great question. What would you like us to see? I mean, I would say that's one of the things. I get the mentorship, I get the sponsorships, and I'm just like, just bet on some Black people. Mm-hmm. Like, I really want, and I work in corp. I mean, Ju might say for her industry and McKinney but I want to see my brothers and sisters. And I always say, it doesn't need to be me. Just
yeah, right. Exactly.
Just bet on some Black people.
Mm-hmm.
We bet on other cultures all the time. I see it. I'll be honest with you. Like, sometimes I'm like, that's a leader? If I did what that leader did,
oh, you'd be out.
I'd be out.
Fast.
Fast. Like, sometimes I'm sitting in these meetings and it's like, wow, so that's one for sure. I also would say is, if there's disparity in the space an environment that you're in, there's a problem. You will never solve it without understanding what that problem is. And for all of us that do problem analysis, root cause analysis, you have to keep going, asking why, until you get to the base of that and understand it. And that's where I think we need to challenge the institutions, the environments where we work, you know. That's another. And then the last one is, for me, is these conversations count. And I think it was Mo or something. I'm at the point where, and my promise to you is, there's nothing you can ask me that I will block you or whatever. There's nothing that you can ask me that I won't accept, whether, even if it's wrong.
Right.
It's my responsibility to give you the grace to understand where that might be wrong, because I just don't want you to run into the wrong person.
And I have to say something right now. I mean, I don't know if you read it or not, but I sent Mo a very spicy text message. Scotch bonnet, habanero pepper, like, and when I saw that Mo said yes to come on here, I was like, that's boss. Because let me tell you, if I sent myself that message,
sorry, don't stop.
I wouldn't be, no, I would not be,
Stop.
I'd be like, bitch, oh, excuse me? It was Scotch bonnet. It was love. It was from my heart. She's known me for years now. And I was very honest, very bold, it was raw, like growling raw. And when I saw Mo said yes to come on this thing, Mo, I love you more than before. Love you more than before.
I'm glad that you asked me, and I know it came with love. And what I failed you on is not replying to you because I was afraid. But I said yes here because I wanted to put myself out there to show you that I'm your sister, and I'm here for you.
I appreciate that.
But thank you because you woke me up, and it was tough, but you woke me up, and I'm grateful for that.
Thank you.
And
I have to say, in front of you, in front of everybody, in front of God, like everyone, and I would say people like Mo, she doesn't have to be here. Actually, real talks. After that message, life is fine. Like when it, the white bright blend into the world. She didn't have to spend her 2 hours here sharing, and standing in the gap and wanting to move the dial and all that stuff. No, it could have been as dismissive as any other day in life. Because you've been in your career, you have a successful life, you have your boo, you're living your best life, and in that, to be that brave to come on here and sit down after that, like that's boss, and that's what in comparison, my friend didn't do. She just ran. You know what I mean? It's like, so what? It's so what? For those who are married in relationships, they get stronger as you get through. If you can get through those tough times, that's foundational. That's when the roots go deep. So real talks, Mo, I didn't think you were gonna come on this. I was like, I don't know if she put her email on the list. Should I even put her on the email list? I was like, all right, we'll see. So thank you for being that example, for real.
She stood up for you, Julie.
Yeah,
Mo stood up for you. And she may not have known how to do it, but she did it imperfectly. And you love her even more for it. And if there's one thing I will ask my non-Black friends, colleagues, humans to do is show up. And we're not expecting you to be perfect. We just want to know that you're there for us. And there is no prescriptive manner in which you do it. You just have to be there. And I would say it is on all of us to create a safe space. Yeah. And as especially resilient, strong leaders, it is almost our duty to do that, to create a safe place that's encouraging us and supportive of us. And it's just what I would ask of all of my non-Black friends, please. And if you can't stand with me, then let me go, please. I don't want a fraud of a relationship. I don't want to be used. Please, I'm way too old for that now. I just don't have the inner fortitude for it. Please let me go. So Julie, she did you a favor. Her true colors, she lacked the resilience. She wasn't able to stand up for you. And the truth is now you know, and you know who to invest your energy in, and who you can share your Scotch bonnet text with, and know that you're probably going to get Scotch bonnet back, but with a hug. And that's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mo.
For real. Thank you, Mo.
And thank you, Jody, for being vulnerable and taking accountability for what was lacking, and being open to hearing it, and not immediately being defensive about it too. I so appreciate that, because especially with men, I don't know if there are men on this call, but you know how men default to being defensive? And so I kind of applaud all beings with estrogen.
I'm my husband, looking over at your husband to the side.
Thank you for processing the information before reacting, and committing to doing something different.
I think that's big.
And Victoria, thank you for sharing your story and taking the time to understand where your friend was coming from. Because again, a lot of people will be quick to judge. They won't even try empathy first. There'll be judgment first, defensiveness first, and that just shows what a big human you are. And Natasha, I didn't hear much from you, but you know Janet Jackson. And girl, I love me some Janet. And so thank you for investing time and energy, and for all of the participants who are non-Black and open to learning and sharing and growing. I thank you all. These are pivotal times, and we need to commit to changing this world. We do. And you're right, Julie, it could be small bits, but if we're all doing small baby steps, movements, we're moving forward, people. We're moving forward, and we're thriving.
You know, I just have to, so sorry. So Colleen, thank you. You effectively made me cry, but it's just, even with Ju sharing her pain, she doesn't know how much I love her, but
I do.
But it's like, I hate that I'm 48 this year. And this is what we're having to talk about. Just to like see us, you know, it just bothers me. And it's not even for me. It's like, it's got to be better for my nieces. It has to be better for my nieces. I just don't want them to go through this. I don't. And you know, Colleen said something that I think set me off, is like, there's a fight that we're fighting, especially in corporate. And like she said, somebody put it in the chat, if you're not something, then let me go. I always say it. Tell us what our ceiling is then.
Yeah.
Just be honest.
Huh.
Like that, like Victoria too. So that's another thing. Like, just tell us what our ceiling is. If it's senior vice president and it's 1, then tell me, because chances are there's somebody out there that wants me, you know. But it's just like, it's like you're fighting to try to, like, you want to do better. We want to do better. We want to do better. And until I'm an entrepreneur and have my own business and making mad billions of dollars, you know, I have to take care of family. And I think it's just, I'm sorry, I'm feeling overwhelmed, because it's just the pressure of like always having to like show up top notch. And Chloe, when you said that, it's like, just tell me if this is my ceiling, then tell me, because I'll put my energy somewhere else. So it's that transparency. Mm-hmm. It's important.
That's where I could appreciate America, really.
Oh.
Like, that's a whole other webinar.
Yeah.
But as you said that, you know, I've had 2 very beautiful, hard to hear, but still beautiful to hear confessions and apologies. One from my former president of the record company I was with, and the former PR person who's a serious co-conspirator right now. I'm going to say her name, Joanna Griffiths of Nix. And she sent me this open letter, and she was my publicist back in the day. And I remember just driving around in her hatchback and going to different stations. And she sent me a letter recently, and she said, "We call you Canada's queen of R&B. And I didn't see your struggle while I was there beside you. I didn't see it. I see it all now." Like, she sees it all now. And even still, she's been supporting 100 SAS and all that for years. But for her to actually just sit and be like, whoa, every time I put a song out, I'm starting over. Every time I put an album out, I'm starting over. It's not the Nickelback, it's not Nelly Furtado, it's not Avril Lavigne, it's not Shania, it's not. Every time a Black artist in this country puts a song out, an album out, we're starting over from zero, and women a whole other level, and so, I've been able to, through my faith, just call it the beginning of a new level rather than the bottom. So I'm so grateful for this conversation, for all of us, like, bosses, for real, McKinney having her podcast, Ank having her podcast, and using other platforms, you know what I mean? Colleen really speaking up of the way you have, and will continue to. And it's like, it doesn't matter who we choose to love. It doesn't matter if the whole point is that at the end of the day, like, we all have a divine purpose, that was assigned to our lives, only our lives. And some people have cut their own lives short. Some people's lives have been cut short because of stress and, all that stuff that really dis-ease, all that stuff that's going on, and it's really impacting the Black community that much more. But I often say, like, as much as Ank, like, you're like, it has to be better for our nieces and our kids and all that. Somebody made it better for us. Somebody made it better for us.
True.
And so there has been change. And now, I'll quote Carolina, change come fast, change come slow, but change come.
Yeah.
And this is what it is. Somebody made it better for us. We couldn't have this conversation. Come on. So I still sit in that gratitude. That somebody made it better for us.
That's big.
And this is what we're doing, So McKinney, would you like to say something?
Oh, wow. I'm not in the corporate space, so my experiences may be a little different, but I honestly want to thank all of these women for coming on and not knowing what the conversation is going to be, because I'm sure that it's uncomfortable, and all change is uncomfortable at first, and it's messy in the middle, but it does get better. So thank you for your bravery. And Julie and Nkechi, honestly, like, I love you both. Thank you for having me on here. I love what you guys are doing on all levels, and continue to do it. And I see that you guys continue to lift as you climb. So I'm grateful for you too.
Thank you. And we love how much you reach. It was a no-brainer. Once Julie and I were yeah, done. It was a no-brainer. And her podcast, to everyone that's listening, I do have to plug it, A Walk in Her Stilettos, is, even if just the concept of that, to walk in somebody else's shoes and really unpack their journey for the learning and the lesson, there's been so many lessons on her podcast, and definitely worth taking in. And so I'd love, because this was about what it means to stand the gap. So if we could, from I would say, like, from Jody, Maureen, Victoria, and Natasha, if you can guys even just end on that, and even just a lesson to everyone that's listening. And by the way, just so that everyone knows, it's like the listening count stayed the entire time. So that's a riveting conversation.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, did you want me to go first?
Yeah.
I'll go last.
You want to go last?
Well, no, I'll go wherever you want me to go. It's your show, girl.
Yes. Yeah, okay. You can go. Yeah.
All right. Lesson one: when you have a platform and you're on a stage with your Black friends, don't speak first. Honestly, that's why I kind of say that, but it's hard to step back and listen first. But to my white friends, that's really important. So that's one. Two is, I really need to say thank you for creating this space and for asking. I feel deeply honored to have been asked, and the love that you are sharing, everybody on this panel is sharing for all of us. It is creating this beautiful energy and condition for change. And it is no small thing that you created this with love and with the energy that you have. So I'm so deeply grateful for that. And I would just say, in terms of answering your specific question of standing in the gap, standing in the gap is like a forever thing, and it is not passive. So to my white friends or non-Black friends on the call or listening, we need to step in and put our arms around our Black sisters and our Black friends actively and outside of this moment in time, like forevermore, like every day. And we need to call each other. We don't have to rely only on our Black friends to call us in. We need to invite each other to call each other in. And when we step out or think it's not our problem anymore, to call each other back in, because this is not for our Black sisters and Black friends to change the world alone. And so we need to do that together. And I invite anyone, please, to join me in stepping into the gap and to call me in and when I step out. And love you and thank you so much.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you for saying yes, and saying yes so quickly without hesitation.
Always for you. And anytime I can and should, that's part of stepping in. We have to do what makes us uncomfortable and do it anyway.
Mo?
I wanted to add to that. Thank you, Jody. That's perfectly stated. I'd like to say that by stepping into the gap together, and it's going to be together, that we also create a bridge, and it allows us to walk across, and we need to do it together as sisters. So I see things very visually. So I imagine if as many of us can step into this gap, have the hard conversations, be vulnerable and brave together, that creates the bridge for us to move forward. And I'm always about action, and it's going to be a marathon. I learned that tonight. I'd like to see things happen fast, but I realized that for things to be sustainable, they have to be slow and steady and meaningful and intentional, so that we can build that trust. And we need to call each other out, and we need to lift each other up as well. And we need to lean in and let go of perfection so that we can have these important conversations. So I thank you for including me. I feel very blessed, and it's the best gift I've gotten in, I feel, my lifetime. So
thank you.
Really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you. Natasha?
I think the biggest lesson is that we do need to take a step back and listen, and then actually take action. Because the concern is that the conversation will start to either die down, or there will be a lot of lip service and not enough action being taken. And we each have a responsibility. Every single person that you see online that keeps posting and posting, what are they actually doing to provoke change? And so I think the biggest lesson in learning is just, we need to take action, whatever it is. And Julie, you said it, you're like, even when it comes down to, making sure that you can be confident and your hair and makeup is looked after. That's like, let's take action, make sure that you never have to worry about that again. So to me, that's the biggest lesson truly right now. And we're going to continue to learn, and we're going to continue to listen, and we're going to continue and we need to provoke change together. I'm really grateful to be part of this. And thank you. Because when you guys reached out, I was like, I'm in. And
yeah, that was you guys all said, by the way, all quick. Nobody asked. You all said yes first before you asked. So what's
I have no idea what it was, but yes, here.
I had no idea what time it was.
All you knew is you only needed half an outfit, because you could sit down. That's all you needed, honey. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Natasha. That was awesome. And Victoria?
I'm going to echo a lot of what the other women here have said. For those who know me well, know I'm rarely quiet. Right, I'm quick to talk and act all the time, and this has been a period of time for me to do much more listening. I shared the story of listening to my friend Cherie without responding, without challenging, just in an attempt to understand. So there is a lot more of that. I know that I need to do going forward to continue to understand. I do believe I'm a woman of action. I feel like I've done a lot to demonstrate that, but there is just so much more that I can do. I know I have the platform to do that, and I'm committed to do that. And that, you know, also comes with the continuation around what I call radical candor. You know, Inc, you want to know, you want to hear, is there a ceiling? Like, I'm going to tell people that because anyone, because I care, you know, and you know, so I'm going to have the hard conversations, but that means as I stand in the gap, I'm going to call out other people on their bullshit if they're not minding the gap in supporting all of you, our entire community, and being stronger together. And I'm going to make sure that this isn't a, you know, a short time conversation. This, you know, continues to be something we're just committed to long term.
And I put all of your standing in the gaps. I swore with yours in the chat.
Sorry.
Julie,
I want to say one thing to our Black sisters. And it's to really recognize when you're in rage versus when you're angry. You know, there's been some misdirected, you know, misguided rage. A lot of stuff bottled up, yeah, for years. But one thing I know for sure is that you can't have love and hate dwell in the same heart. Can't share the same space. And so as we're being asked, you know, for our opinions, how we are actually feeling, and Enk knows, because I got to this point when my mom passed away, it really, I asked people to ask me, how are you today? And just really deal with the day that we're in, the moment that we're in. And so just to be mindful on how much we could be diarrhea at the mouth, you know, for the wrong person, that Victoria could be taking on the rage I'm feeling because of some, like all of that. We just got to be present, be where our feet are, be present in our feelings and our emotions, like really stand in it, sit in it, be immersed in it, you know, and still represent our community with class and with grace, and really think about, you know, how our ancestors would want us to represent, you know, thinking about, you know, however many times Harriet Tubman went back and forth. She had co-conspirators. She wasn't just popping off with her gun. Just, you know, who did she have along that journey? Who was her Maureen, her Victoria, her Jody, her Natasha? You get what I'm saying? Like, we have a responsibility to be wise and to really, and to learn. I'm reading White Privilege. I'm reading that. I'm reading. I'm taking in the information too. Mm-hmm. So as these opportunities are coming our way, you know, some of us may be given opportunities that we're actually not qualified for, but I often say God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. So when you get that opportunity, now educate yourself, prepare yourself, don't, you know, just all that stuff. I won't go too long, but there's so many out there that are using this time, Black women and men too, but I can speak as a Black woman, clearly, using this time to clap back and pop off and be angry, and don't give in to the stereotype. Don't be the stereotype. Mm. You can be passionate, but just know that you're carrying the first 3 letters of legacy, and legend is leg. Mm-hmm. Whose legs went before you? We got to keep those strong legs. We have to do all that we can to remain poised and speak from a space of grace and love. Love, love, love. Love.
Mm-hmm. Can we take a picture of this experience? Ju, you wanna do it?
Oh, I'm the screen capture person. Okay.
Yes, she is. Yeah. Okay, so get ready. Hold on. My lips are dry from 2 hours.
Ready? Why did I put my hair in a ponytail? Ready?
Okay.
Ready? Hi. One more? Mm-hmm. People looking at us like we crazy.
And to everyone that is that dialed in, you know, thank you so much. What I'd love to do, and for anyone that's still listening, there are some Q&A questions, and I would love to actually, I'm going to take the transcript and even just share them with everyone that's here. And if any of you feel compelled to even just send me a response to any of them, let me know. And as I send a thank you, I can actually put some responses in there.
Yeah.
Okay, because we didn't get to them. Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you all.
Take care. Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.